First, under you ain't going to believe this, I want to give you a phrase that has popped up, and I need to get a definition of it. Although the minute I saw it, I thought, I have to talk about this. It's called a native land acknowledgement. And if you wonder, what the heck is that? Well, a professor at the University of Washington is now the subject of controversy for inserting his opinion about the native land acknowledgement that administrators at the Paul Allen School of Computer Science and Engineering said you should put one of these in each one of the syllabi that you hand out to students. Jen Cabani joins me now, who's editor with the College Fix. Jen, welcome back to the program. And can we start by just defining what is a native land acknowledgement?
So a native land acknowledgement is where professors will put on their syllabus that we acknowledge that the land that we're teaching on and operating on was previously owned by Native Americans. And we're so sorry that we're on it now and that the white man stole it from you.
Now, hold on. One of the details on this, and I don't want to get too far afield, but when people bring up natives owned the land in Native Americans, I said, did they even have the concept of land ownership? Was that a part of Native society? Because my recollection of reading everything I've read about Native Americans over decades is they didn't really hold to an idea that we own this piece of land. You had it until you decided to move somewhere else or until somebody else took it by force. And that was the set of rules among the tribes at the time, to the extent that there were any rules at all. The unspoken rule is it's yours as long as you can keep it, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It ignores the conquest paradigm that Native American tribes had at the time, where they were, warring with each other and taking land over with each other or displacing each other. But the native land acknowledgement is really only when the evil white man came. That's when the real stealing began. But prior to that, what the Native Americans were doing amongst themselves was just peaceful and peace loving and smoking the peace pipe, that kind of thing.
Jen Cabani is an editor at the College Fix, so I don't know if I'll murder the pronunciation of his name, but Professor Stuart Regis, is that the way you say his name?
I think so, Regis. He wrote a syllabus for his Computer Science and Engineering 143 class, and then he decided to add a little personalization to that syllabus before he handed it out to students. He said, I acknowledge that by the labor theory of property, the Coast Salish people can claim historical ownership of almost none of the land currently occupied by the University of Washington. Apparently, he wasn't buying into the woke ideas coming from the college administration. Yeah, essentially, he is arguing that the value of land over time is basically accrued by the people who add value to the land, who's working the land. And so that would be the people that have built up the University of Washington over the last 100 years. And, if these professors and administrators were really sincere about giving Native Americans their due, that they should give the university back then if they're so worried about it.
I'm not even sure why this relates in any way to a computer science class, but what was the reaction of the students at the University of Washington, and what was the reaction of the administration to Stuart Regis's argument?
Well, administrators were swift to crack down on the syllabus. They censored it, they amended it, took out the offending statement and created a new one and created a shadow class that students could enroll in so that their feelings weren't hurt by Professor Regis. And so Regis was basically censored and told to get in line, but he refused. That's the beauty of it. This guy is a fighter. This isn't the first time he's been in the crosshairs of administrators. And he said, no, I'm not taking it off unless all the professors take their land acknowledgements off.
And who exactly was offended by what he wrote? Did anybody actually step up and say, I'm a student and I don't like what he wrote?
I think on Reddit, there was some students who were, voicing anonymous concerns. But the gal who took the lead was just an administrator who, emailed the class, apologized for the offensive, quote unquote, land acknowledgement, and encouraged them to report any concerns that they had and take advantage of the university's counseling programs.
So the university that's telling its professors, put this at the head of your syllabi so that you acknowledge that we really don't own this land. It was taken by evil white people from the true owners. Is the university planning to hand the land back or the title to the land back to any of the local tribes?
Well, that's the irony. It's kind of been, these land acknowledgements have been described as the cheapest form of campus virtual signaling. If they were really true, give the Native Americans reparations then. Or I saw one pundit suggest let them open a casino in the middle of campus. But no, it's just this cheap, easy way of virtual signaling and making them feel like they're doing something positive for the progressive movement and teaching students that the white man is bad, bad, bad.
Well, and tell me this, it's also a way of sort of filtering your faculty, because you can figure out which ones will go along and simply say, okay, fine, they told me to put this on there, I'll put it on there. And then there will be others like Professor Regis who say no to this. Did any of his colleagues stand up and say, hey, he's right, leave him alone, and stop doing this virtue signaling? Did he get any support from his fellow faculty members or from the professional organizations that represent college faculty?
So he does have some support from the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education.
Fire.
But he's untenured. He already has been in trouble because a couple of years ago he wrote a piece called Why Women Don't Code. And that caused all sorts of headaches and nightmares for him because people were furious that he dared spell out gender differences between men and women and preferences and so on. So he was already on thin ice when they went to renew his contract. Some professors wanted him outright dismissed. Other professors wanted him to get another 3-year contract, which is what he was used to. And then they compromised for a 1-year extension. So the writing might be on the wall for a good Professor Regis, who's just trying to point out the idiocy and hypocrisy of his peers.
Jen,
and basically argue for diversity of viewpoint, because he's basically saying, hey, look, if you just say, let me put a land acknowledgement on this, let me say what I want. Don't tell me what to write, and don't censor my words. That's basic academic freedom 101.
Which I don't think is unreasonable. And Jen, I've been quoting Martin Niemöller, the guy who wrote the famous little set of lines saying when they came for the socialist workers, I wasn't one, so I didn't say anything. And then when they came for the Jews, I didn't say anything because I wasn't one. And then finally, when they came for me, there was nobody left to stand up. But the last 2 years, including stuff like this, I would think that some of those other professors would say, if I don't stand up for Professor Regis, one of these days they're going to come to me and they're going to say, you say this or else. And what am I going to say when they do that? It seems as though professors, if nobody else in American society, would have a recognition that if you don't stand up for free speech among your colleagues, they're going to come for yours next. And yet, on these stories like this, I always see these professors standing all by themselves and their colleagues saying, no, I don't want to see that. I want to keep my job.
Exactly. 2 points. One, what's interesting is Professor Regis is openly gay. So he is technically part of a marginalized group, but nobody seems to care about that because he doesn't, advance the progressive narrative. Secondly, professors are so scared for their jobs. They're so scared to speak up. If they have a differing opinion, or even if they have a centrist opinion, they are quickly become pariahs on campus and, labeled with all sorts of ad hominem attacks. So I think a lot of professors are just really scared right now and trying to survive, unfortunately.
No doubt. Jen Kabani is an editor at the College Fix. You can find the College Fix online. University of Washington says to an administrator, say these words or else. And everybody else caves but him. Good for Professor Regis.